And we're live. Hi, Bat. Hi, Fire Pixie. Hi, Jay. Hi, Darnell. Hi, everyone else in the chat. Hope I didn't miss anyone. Pete, good seeing you. Mary, of course, the great Mary from down under. You're in Australia, I believe, right, Mary? With the Bitchamite sandwich. Jay, of course. I haven't seen Cat Daddy in a while. Tony, of course. Always good seeing Tony. Hey, Tony, I got a message from, I'll just call him B for now. I don't know if he wants me saying his name or not, but he's in Yuba City, and he's like the boys. You know, he's in programs like the boys. I was going to put this on our group, but he is in contact with somebody that did some counseling with Bill Sterling's mother, Juanita Sterling. So I think the counselor, I believe it's a gentleman, has agreed to meet with Bailey. Oh, I just said his name. Sorry, dude. And maybe, I don't know, I can't edit that, it's live, but share some insights into that. Man, hope I didn't just step into it, but you know, we don't have much from the Sterling side in the Yuba County 5K, so it would be really nice to have some more insights from the family, because we don't have many. I think Bill's nephew had popped into one of the groups for a while and made an introduction, and was nice to hear from him, because we don't have a lot of people from Bill's side that participate much in the Yuba County 5 stuff, like we're so fortunate to do with the Weir family and the Madrugas. You know, we know them well, and then some of Gary's people are nice to have, and the other families. But of all the Yuba County 5 families, the Sterlings are we have the least from, because they don't like really visiting that case too much, and I don't blame them. It's their right, and we respect that right, of course. Tony and I both, and the other researchers of that case, but we might be able to get some new insight there on the 5, which would be nice. Hey, Darnell, really enjoyed doing that interview on the Zodiac Killer, and I'm definitely, you know, this is mainly a Zodiac channel, only for the most part. I don't do it all the time. You know, I don't do as much as Ned or something. You know, Ned's great resource for all things Yuba County 5. And congratulations to Ned, by the way, on his upcoming nuptials. I know Ned's in the Philippines. They had a pretty bad typhoon a couple weeks ago in the Philippines, and everybody's okay there with Ned and future in-laws and future bride and everything. So that's good news. Hey, Mike. And that was kind of scary, I think, being down there. I know the weather can get pretty weird. I don't even know the difference between a hurricane. You know, I'm in Texas, so we have hurricanes. So I'm not really that well versed on the damage that typhoons can do, but I know they're really powerful, like a hurricane type, or maybe that's what they call hurricanes in the Philippines, or typhoons. But fortunately, everybody's doing well there, and I hope Ned's doing well. I'm sure he'll be back up with upload tomorrow, which I never miss. I don't comment much on the comment section, because it seems like I draw like sometimes some negative fire there for whatever reason. So, but I do watch. I just don't comment much because I don't want to, you know, break up whatever's being talked about. Hey, Jacob. Tim, I don't know if you stayed up, Tim. See, I even brought out the guitar just for you, bro. And it's not even tuned right, but for you, I brought it out because I don't know if you stayed up late or not. Maybe you fell asleep, man. I know we were talking earlier, but I was going to do a little, just because my buddy got my whole microphone and preamp and everything tweaked finally. So I had to re-record some part of a podcast we're working on. And he finally found the setting inside my computer that was screwed up. So I think I finally have the audio dialed in. I hope. It's actually a little low right now. I don't know why, but hopefully it's done well. The audio that I did with you, Darnell, turned out great. Whatever you did, whatever it passed through, it really came out well. Yeah. Everybody check out the Myers fan channel. And then what your other channel, Darnell? You've got 2. I know you put it on both your channels. You got it on the Myers fan. I think that's your big one. And then you have a smaller channel, the Darnell Week Show. And somehow you simulcast that show. We pre-recorded it, or you pre-recorded it with me, and then you had it simulcast on both of your channels at the same time. I don't have 2 YouTube channels, but I still want to know how you did that, because I need that knowledge in the future for some reason. Haley, I don't know why, but I need it. But anyway, Tim. See, I already screwed up. This guitar's not tuned. See, it's not tuned. See, this guitar just, it's a junky. It's a Gibson, but it's not, you know. See, it was screwed up my Floyd, man. I was trying to play a little Floyd. See, I can't even, there's something wrong with it. Other than me being terrible. Wish you were here, bro. Yeah, I don't know. There's something wrong with this stupid junky guitar. It needs to be put out the pasture. I'll blame it more on the guitar than me. But anyway, I didn't know where to start, but I'd start with the oh, Tim, you wanted me to mention the Starlight scope and the fact. So the antimony was in the Starlight scope, right, Tim? Of course, we're switching gears right here. I'm going to share the screen. Yeah, the one string is like bad. I couldn't like tune it. It's like totally. It's this Gibson. I don't even know what model this is. See it? Whatever model this Gibson is. It's actually my daughter's guitar. My acoustic is a junk, but I don't know. I think something happened to it in storage. Yeah, thanks, Patty, for putting up Tim's channel. But anyway, you wanted me to mention the Starlight scope, Tim, and I know since it's really late in the UK, I wanted to put this up. So let me do a share screen and go to Starlight scope. This is 67. So I don't know. This should be. Here's one here. It pulls up. There's one. It's attached to a rifle, which I don't think they were doing. Obviously, Ted Braden's team had the first Starlight scope given to any team in Vietnam, and it was the first version of night vision in Vietnam, and it was just simply called a Starlight scope. But here's another picture. Let me see if I can pull this one up. There's a better picture here. Let me go back to this one. I think this one's more accurate. I think this one's a little closer to what it looked like. I'm not sure. I'd have to have like Jim Hetrick. There's the picture there of the Starlight scope. And obviously it has multiple glass components and it didn't always work. But Ted Braden was handed the first one of these to be used in Vietnam in 1966. And he got frustrated with it famously, and he slammed it down on an open trail in Laos. And that wasn't really smart because the bad guys come along and find the pieces to it and wonder what it is and don't like that. And then they can say, oh, somebody's been here. Yeah, these strings are probably fried on this guitar. It's my daughter's. She doesn't play anymore. And I didn't realize that till I just tried to tune it. It definitely needs some new strings. Maybe some Martins would be good. That'd be fun. I used to like stringing guitars. I used to get a lot of enjoyment out of that. I don't know why. I could string a guitar and tune it better than I could play it, but now I'm doing both terribly. But I think some Martins would be nice on this. Maybe something a little lower. Something a little smaller. Maybe some 8s. Yeah, Martins I like for acoustic, but I don't play much acoustic, obviously. They're good to play because if you play, switch to electric, you could kind of cut through it a lot faster after getting good calluses on your fingers. Nothing really, there's been a lot of, somebody thought somebody was targeting the homeless people, and there's this well, I wouldn't really want to call him a gentleman, but this man, and I don't know what he did. He attacked a homeless guy, and I think he might have whatever he did to him, I think it resulted in the homeless guy's death, and they caught the guy, which is great. But I don't think he's the Bayou City Butcher or anything like that, and they haven't found any new bodies in the water. But somebody thinks the homeless people are getting attacked. Some of the people that they found were not homeless. And the weirdest story about the whole case is one of the families of one of the gentlemen that were found in the water had some like metal added to his neck or something, like a surgery or something, like you would add some metal plates to someone's neck or something. And they were like, as far as they knew, their loved one, he'd never had a surgery like that. So they don't know where it came from. Like, how did this surgery with metal involved, come up? Because they had never known him to have any metal inserted in him surgically or otherwise. So it was really strange for them. I might reach out to that family and have them on and see what the thing is, because they're really asking a lot of questions about why there's not more information on that, what happened to the guy. But anyway, that was the Starlight Scope. And what was the deal, Tim? It had the antimony in it, one of the first things. And that's, one of the things they found on DB Cooper's tie was a Starlight, something that was in a Starlight Scope, which Braden had in Vietnam as the team leader, and he smashed it on an open trail in Laos out of frustration because it wasn't doing what he wanted it to do. And he'd have, is it phosphor? Oh yeah, phosphors would have definitely been in there because of the different lenses, and probably had green lenses, and it had the tie had green phosphors in it, and different elements in glass making and colored glass making, like cathode ray tubes or something involved in like readouts, like small screens that were colored that had some form of readout in it. Was one of the first things they could tell by trying to add up all the elements together. They were coming up with these screens or whatever. But I'll make this kind of the DB Cooper show, since it's the end of CooperCon. I didn't go, so safe travels home for everybody that went. I know a few people that went. They said they had a really good time. And Tim, you were filling me in on a lot of it. They have the cockpit recording from the DB Cooper flight, which would be great to get a hold of a copy of that. If anybody could send it to me, I'd love to have it. I'm sure Ryan will play it on his show. But apparently something is in the cockpit recording that points to Cooper being absolutely military, which isn't a big shock to me. I mean, even if it's not Braden, and I don't push Braden anymore, I never found anything to disqualify him either, but I just don't care. It's like who you want to like. I don't make any money on this, so I don't really care. But I'm just interested in him as a whole. If Cooper's great, if he's not great, whatever, I don't care. Because what we do know about him is so fascinating, it blows your mind. And what I was really thinking about earlier, doing a new podcast about him, is why he was so protected by everything he did. I mean, we found out a lot more criminal activity he was involved in through the late 70s, early 1980s, heavy criminal activity, some maybe involving the mafia, which is interesting because a buddy of mine, actually my best friend in high school, moved out of state. He's living in Boston now, and he called me after reading the book, Paratrooper of Fortune, and said, "Hey, I'm telling you right now, your boy's mafia." And I was like, "What? Mafia? What are you talking about, mafia?" He goes, "Yeah, man, there's no way he could have driven across state lines with stolen merchandise like that and not have been part of a group." He said mafia would have killed him instantly. He said they had, contracts for all that. If you took stolen meat, fish, any kind of product at all, anything, it didn't matter, over state lines, and they knew about it, they would kill you because they had a monopoly on all that, especially if he's going into Massachusetts. They said Mafia City, if it was on the East Coast and you're harboring stolen goods and they didn't get their cut, they would literally kill you. And what's fun now is that we are finding he did have heavy mafia ties. And my friend's the first one that called it about a little over a year ago. He called me and said, "Hey, look into mafia angle on your guy, at least later on in his life. He's got mafia ties, or they would have killed him, no doubt." And he's turning out to be right. So good call by him. I know a lot of Zodiac stuff offline that I don't talk about. Nothing, that would solve it by any means. No, nothing that would solve it. If I did, I'd put it out there. Honestly, I would. I hear a lot of things that you can't really hang your hat on, so to speak. I know they were making a documentary on Netflix. I don't know if it had anything to do with the seawater documentary, but they were making a documentary about Zodiac on Netflix. And one of their big reveals was going to be that they were going to completely eliminate the Kathleen Johns story, which doesn't surprise me. I think Kathleen Johns was a liar. I don't know why she made it up. I don't know who burned the car out, but I never thought that was Zodiac. I just didn't. I never thought Sherry Joe Bates was Zodiac. But that's not a big reveal to me that Kathleen Johns wasn't telling the truth. But one of the reveals, supposedly, if that documentary saw the light of day, is they were going to completely dismantle that and prove that she made it up, which would be nice in a way, just so you could take that piece off the table in that case. Same with D.B. Cooper in the other case. Yuba County 5, by the way, if you could take something off the case, like Tony knows, I would like to take one theory off the table in the Yuba County 5 case, but because I think if we did take one particular theory off the case, it would really open up the bandwidth to study what may have really happened. Because one thing in the Yuba County 5 case, it has grown legs over probably since it happened. This story was told, and the story never changed much over the years. And you know what that story is, if you know the Yuba County 5 case, is Gary Mathias being thrown over the Oroville, over the bridge at the Oroville Dam. If I'm even saying that, what was the name of the bridge, Tony? I'm starting to forget. Too many cases, but that story has grown so many legs over the years. It's never dissipated. One of the families is a firm believer in it, and I'm not. Nothing against them. I just don't think it happened, and it's really sucked a lot of bandwidth out of a difficult case. And if we could take that off the table, it may have happened. I can't say it didn't. I just don't think it did. And if we could take that off the table, we could really, really concentrate in the right areas. Hey, Big B, I think I outed your name earlier, man. Sorry. But I got your text, and that's interesting stuff, man. Keep doing the digging, man. We need it. Tony's on here, by the way. We really need it. But going back to all things Cooper, since it's a wrap up of CooperCon. Sorry, couldn't make it, but man, I have way too much work going on, and hopefully it'll slow down before Christmas. That would be very nice. I want to read that just because you're saying two words I like, and I like in the same sentence, so I'm going to put this up every time. Cooper in Vietnam, I love that together. I believe Cooper was in Vietnam. A lot of people disagree. They can disagree all they want. I think Cooper absolutely was exposed to Vietnam. And Tim, if you're still on here, back me up on the fact that the cockpit recorder points to him being military. And if it was military, most likely he was going to be where? Vietnam. Okay. I mean, there's just no way around it. Night jumping was not really more SOG than special forces. Of course, MACVSOG was elite special forces. They were the ones doing the night jumping, even more than straight up special forces. SOG did 10 times more night jumping than a straight up SF guy. It was mostly MACVSOG. And I will die on that. My good mate. I'll die on that hill that Cooper was a Vietnam guy. I can't prove it was Braden. I wasn't on the plane. I won't go there, but I will die on the hill that he is known to the CIA, had done some CIA work, and was in Vietnam. I'll die on that hill all day long. If you can prove me wrong, but you could tar and feather me. I'll walk down the street with feathers on. The guy was in Vietnam. The guy was military. He knew how to jump. He had extreme jumping ability, more than static line. This guy had free fall, most likely halo, high altitude, low opening jump skills out the wazoo. And of course, Braden did. Braden liked to pull the ripcord under 1,000 feet. He was an absolute daredevil, one of the best jumpers ever known to the Army. The purview of jumping at night was specifically within special forces, something to do with MACVSOG, which we'll talk about here in this article, which is Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group, which is a benign sounding name for the guys that did the dirty work. They went into Laos, sterile, no dog tags. If they found you over there, they would just might as well kill you, because we couldn't admit to being there because of the Geneva Accord. Yes, flaps at 15 degrees equals AA. That is Air America. There is only one known Cooper suspect that is known to have hopped many of ride with Air America, and that is Ted Braden. Ted Braden flew with Air America so much. He knew all the pilots. He would go to Saigon for meetings. They would fly him back to base camp. The plane would actually tip its wing when it was coming in, they could get a visual on the plane. And when the plane tipped its right wing, that means Ted Braden was on board. That was Ted's ego. Ted would say, tip the wing so they know I'm on this plane. And they would tip the wing, mean Ted's back. The wing got tipped on the Air America plane. That's how much he flew with Air America. He had his own patented wing tip. He flew with Air America guys a lot. That's fact. Jim Hetrick will tell you that. J.D. Bath, Al Keller, they all knew he was in with Air America. He flew with them on point to point. He flew with them on cargo missions. He was a regular flying with Air America. Before that, it was CAT Airlines. Civil Air Transport is what CAT stood for, kind of a precursor to AA. One of the sons of a CAT pilot was told by his father that Braden was D.B. Cooper in 1971. He always believed it ever since his dad told him that, because his dad was a well-known CAT pilot before Air America. He knew a lot of stuff that was going on in Southeast Asia. This thing has hallmarks of Vietnam all over it and Special Forces. That's why they went out asking guys that were in 5th Group Special Forces and MACVSOG, who do you think Cooper was? And they only gave one answer, not 2, not 3, 1. And we know what the 1 is. But anyway, this is a reading of SEALs on Trail. And this is really supposed to be about Navy SEALs being embedded with SOG, and that's what happened here. But it winds up being more about the enigmatic team leader of RT Colorado, one Ted Braden, who, of course, was Army Special Forces. But the guy didn't know when they started writing this article. It was Ken Conboy, who I know, and James Morrison, not the singer, but Ken Conboy is still around. He's an expert on 5 Commando too, which is interesting because Braden was in 5 Commando, and Ken is an expert on 5 Commando. There's actually a 5 Commando Facebook group that he's in, and we communicate through that quite a bit. But since I got the microphone working, I'll read a little of this. When Richard Ray, who's a Navy SEAL, stepped on, there wasn't that many Navy SEALs in Vietnam. That's why it's funny. The joke is that somebody's met over 1,000 Navy SEALs that were in Vietnam, and there was only like 300, or I don't know. I probably have the numbers wrong, but that's the joke, because so many Navy SEALs lied about fighting in Vietnam that didn't happen. But Richard Way was a known Navy SEAL in Vietnam that fought. When Richard Way stepped off the plane in Da Nang in the spring of 1966, he was entering a different kind of war. Ever since 1962, U.S. Navy SEAL advisors like Ray had been dispatched to the Republic of Vietnam as instructors for indigenous commandos raiding in North Vietnamese coast under the auspices of the Central Intelligence Agency. We are talking about the CIA, of course, because it's got its fingerprints all over D.B. Cooper and all things globally. After those operations shifted in 1964 to the control of the Special Operations Group, SOG. It says special, which is funny because it's studies. So I think that's just a typo by Ken and the boys. But I don't think it had a dual meaning, but it was actually studies and observations group. Here it's just calling it special operations. It's really special operations was the catch-all for everything, but SOG is really studies. The Pentagon's Joint Unconventional Warfare Outfit headquartered in Saigon. SEALs continued serving in this capacity. As SOG advisors, the SEALs were in a good situation, limited to 6 months tours. Then, along with a handful of forced recon Marines, those guys were badass, were posted to a string of beachside training camps located along the Song Tre Peninsula opposite Da Nang. Connected to the mainland by a narrow land bridge, this served as a natural insulation against prowling Viet Cong bands. And since they were strictly prohibited from accompanying their students north, the closest the SEALs got to action was to bid farewell to their raiders at the dock, then greet them upon return. See, the SEALs weren't allowed to go into Laos, but some did. Not all the SOG was concerned with maritime operations. Ever since the fall of 65, a small but growing segment within the group focused on cross-border operations along the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos. Some call it Laos. Codenamed Shining Brass, which Braden was part of Shining Brass. That was Project Omega. These operations were spearheaded by helicopter-borne spike teams, then comprised of U.S. Army Special Forces and South Vietnamese commandos. Braden hated South Vietnamese commandos for some reason. He hated them more than the NBA. I don't know why. He hated those guys. They were friendly fighters, but we'll get to more about how bad I don't know why he hated these guys. Even though they were fighting alongside him, he hated them. Though primarily concerned with reconnaissance along the trail, each 12-man team was trained and equipped to carry out other contingencies such as ambushes and prisoner snatches. By the summer of 66, the signing brass operations were having a noticeable effect. Some spike teams, for example, were able to direct dozens of accurate airstrikes against communist storage sites hidden in the jungle. Reports from other teams contained intelligence that had found an audience all the way back to the White House. See, in 1965 and 66, MACVSOG was 100% run by the CIA. It was not run by generals or Westmoreland or any of that BS. They were run by the Central Intelligence Agency. Every mission they took was all under the control and advisement of the CIA in the early years. In later years, no, they were back with commands of the Army more. But in the first 3 or 4 years, it was 100% CIA operation. So if you were a SOG member in the early 60s, 65, 66, 67, you were in essence working for the CIA already. You were already a CIA contractor. You just weren't called that. You were a Green Beret in the Army, but you were working for the CIA. Summer 66, Shiny Brass. Some spike teams, for example, were able to direct dozens of accurate airstrikes against storage sites hidden in the jungle. Reports from other teams contained intelligence that had found an audience all the way back to the White House. Moreover, the North Vietnamese Army, NVA, the bad guys, was proving itself largely incapable of effectively countering the covert SOG incursions. So they were having a massive effect in the early years. In later years, there was a lot of infiltrators, which caused a lot of problems and a lot of death. Braden was already out of SOG by the time they started getting infiltrated by bad guys, and they were being tipped off where they were going to have their landing zones, and they'd have to switch. They'd have to have a backup landing zone because the fire was so bad. It was a total mess. But Ted's gone at the end of in December of 66. At that point, SOG planners came up with a novel exchange program. The success of the Shining Brass teams presented a good opportunity for the SEALs to hone their skills in the field. In return, some Shining Brass Special Forces commandos could try their hand at training the South Vietnamese maritime raiders on the Son-Tre Peninsula northeast of Da Nang. Kicking off the pilot project were Ray, the Navy's, and fellow SEAL advisor Daniel Cunningham. Posted to the Shining Brass base at Kontum, Ray was assigned to arguably the best unit in the cross-border program, Spike Team Ohio. Heading Ohio at the time was Richard Meadows, a highly regarded sergeant who earned the accolades during an earlier operation while a member of Spike Team Maine. On 18 March, Maine uncovered an NBA cache of 6 disassembled 75 millimeter howitzers, all U.S. manufactured, which they destroyed by airstrike, but not before bringing back the aiming circle sight, plotting board, and list of serial numbers for many components as proof. The rest of Ohio consisted of a Special Forces assistant team leader, a radio man, a Vietnamese lieutenant serving as Meadows' indigenous counterpart and interpreter, and 7 ethnic non-commandos renowned for their fervent anti-communist sentiments. The minority tribe from the Chinese-Vietnam border region was a favored source of recruitment for SOG spike teams. Later becomes the Mountain Yard, another ethnic group in Vietnam. Through late summer, Ray trained alongside Ohio. On September 8, he was ready for his baptism of fire. Scheduled up for 1 week along the trail, the team was supposed to wait for a truck convoy and ambush it. As it turned out, the SOG commandos ended up making contact with the NBA squad on their second day. The enemy troops were on the opposite steam bank, recalled Ray. We opened fire at first. At least 2 Northern Vietnamese died in the exchange, their bodies landing face down in the water. As both sides pulled back, Meadows decided to test the mettle of his SEAL teammate, said Ray. The 2 of us crossed the stream. He had a K-bar knife. I had a bamboo pole. Moving a short way into the jungle, they came up a trampled area with blood on the ground. Concerned that the enemy force might have been larger than they originally thought, they made their way back towards the rest of the team. Their decision proved fortunate. No sooner had they arrived than communist gunfire erupted from their flank. Remaining together, Ohio ran for the better part of the day before being extracted by helicopter the following morning. Cunningham, the second SEAL in the exchange program, was posted as Spike Team Iowa at Khartoum, led by another outstanding team leader, Gary Waring. Iowa consisted of 2 more Special Forces commandos and a mix of 9 Nung and ethnic Chinese crews. Cunningham was to be their 13th member. That's big for a SOG team. Usually kind of top out around 8 or 9. Quickly, Cunningham, who earned the nickname Beach Ball because of the aquatic proclivities associated with SEALs, proved himself a worthy addition to the team during the next 2 infiltrations. He was real good, summed up fellow IRA member Alex Fontes. Given such a favorable reviews, it was decided to expand the program with 2 additional SEALs. One of the new arrivals was Brian Rand, posted to the forward shining brass launch site adjacent to the military outpost at Dak To. Rand was attached to the team, forming under the command of Sergeant Paul Snuffy Conroy. In early October, Rand, Conroy, and their indigenous teammates were ready for combat. As planned, they were lifted into Laos and began patrolling. In their 3rd day on the ground, the team scout ran headlong into NBA patrol. As both sides scrambled for cover, the 2 opposing point men, SOG and North Vietnamese, traded insults. It turns out they both spoke the same Nung dialect, said Rand. Eventually breaking contact, the commandos exfiltrated without further incidents. The 4th SEAL serving in Shining Brass was Gary Shattuck. For some reason, they misspell his name in this article as Shattuck, but it's Shattuck, like a duck that quacks. Halfway through, so if I actually say Tuck, it's because Ken wrote it wrong, so he'll have to answer for that. Maybe the guys that published it screwed it up, or he was maybe trying to hide his name. I don't know, but it's Gary Shattuck. I know that for sure. Was matched with Spike Team Colorado. On many counts, Colorado was unique. Unlike other Spike Team, which was Vietnamese, Chinese, or Nung commandos, Colorado was the first to employ mountain yards, and that later becomes the gold standard among ethnic tribes training with U.S. Special Forces, the generic term for minority hill tribes from Central Vietnam. The reason for this departure was because Colorado was intended to act as a pilot team to contact local tribal groups that were inhibiting the border area inside Laos for an expanded Shining Brass operation presence. Our indigenous team leader and interpreter were Jari, J-A-R-A-I, tribesman from Pleiku, said Jim Hetrick. I know Jim well. One of the Special Forces commandos with Team Colorado since its inception. We also had some Sedang from Dak To vicinity and even some ethnic Lao that had floated across the border, Hetrick recalled. Colorado was also unique because of its team leader, Ted Braden. Among many larger-than-life characters in the program, Braden was a complete enigma. Formerly an active duty commissioned officer for the Army Reserve, he had arrived in South Vietnam in late 1965. Actually, he was there earlier than that, as part of the 2nd increment of Special Forces non-commissioned officers slated for cross-border teams. At times, he was quiet, almost a professional model, walking around camp in a sweater and puffing on a pipe. At other times, however, Braden displayed uncontrollable rage. At other times, however, he punched a Vietnamese lieutenant in Khartoum, said Hetrick, and he was banished to Dak To. And that I write about that incident from Jim Hetrick's point of view in my book. Their troubles followed after a tense exchange with Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Bull Simmons. That guy's infamous, and Braden wasn't scared of him and would tie it up with the guy. One of the senior SOG planners, Braden was punished by having Colorado's intended long-term unconventional mission scrubbed. Instead, Colorado would be tasked with reconnaissance missions like any other Shining Brass team. Despite such outbursts, there was no denying Braden was something of a pioneer. He had the idea of mixing different ethnic groups in a single team in order to foster competition, noted Hetrick. Braden also had his team trained in native civilian garb. After this led to protests from SOG superiors who apparently disliked the complete departure from military norms, he then became the first SOG team leader to have his men wear combat fatigues dyed black, reflecting existing Viet Cong apparel. Perhaps the most mysterious aspect about Braden was his close ties to the CIA. He spent a lot of time with the agency representatives in Saigon, noted Shattuck.
who joined the team in the fall of '66. We were told not to ask questions when he was gone for a week at a time because he was going to work the black market. He was going to Saigon to meet with the CIA guys to do stuff specifically for the CIA guys that none of the other SOG team guys knew about. They were told, if you see me out, Braden would tell them, if you see me out anywhere in the Piastri Exchange and the black markets of Saigon, you don't know me. Don't come up to me. You ever heard of me? You don't know me. Don't say a word. I'll act like I don't know you because you don't know me. He was very adamant about that. And several people I know that knew him told me this. Not only did Braden go missing for extended periods, but he would return from his CIA tryst with cutting-edge hardware since the Starlight scope. We were the first SOG team to get a Starlight scope, an early model night vision device, and wiretapping kit. Colorado was the first team that did a successful wiretap in Laos. Said team member James J.D. Bath, of course, his code name was Tubb, of course, because his last name was Bath. Braden also procured a seismometer. That's something you got to check out, Tim. Seismometer to test its applicability for use in conjunction with the automatic detonation of Claymore mines. So check out seismometer, Tim, and what's in it. After a single in-country reconnaissance mission at the behest of U.S. Marine Corps during the second half of September, which turned up no evidence of an NBA presence, Colorado was ready for its first major outing in early October. A few days before its scheduled infiltration, the team gathered at SOG compound in Phubai, the town north of Da Nang, to ease tension. Braden arranged for a tour of the nearby ancient imperial city of Hue. Halfway to their destination, however, their truck ran into a Viet Cong ambush. Careening off the road and into a ditch, the team jumped from the vehicle and hugged a rise formed by a railroad track running parallel to the road. Noticeably cool under pressure, Braden leapt to his feet, carbine in hand, urging his teammates to fire. He sprinted across a rice paddy towards the source of the ambush in a neighboring village. When it soon became apparent that the enemy weapons had fallen silent and the Viet Cong had fled, the other Americans followed. Before reaching the village, however, they came across a body wearing the uniform of a South Vietnamese Regional Forces militia. Remember, those are the friendly guys. They're the guys fighting with us. The corpse was face down in a paddy with a bullet hole at the base of its skull. He was executed. When they finally arrived in the village, their team leader was interrogating the locals and made no mention of the dead militiaman. There's no way Braden could have missed this guy. You know why? Because Braden's the one that killed him. Well, the word's actually murder. Unalived is the new term, I believe. Already, U.S. Marine reinforcements had arrived and brought the situation under hand. Braden, however, apparently was still on an adrenaline high. When the team suggested they return to Phubai before nightfall, he waved his weapon and labeled them cowards, then commandeered a bus for Hue. I mean, he's totally out of control at this point. By the time the team regrouped at Phubai, a cloud already was starting to form over the execution of the South Vietnamese militiaman. While it was apparent that Braden would face some kind of disciplinary hearing, it was decided to go ahead with the scheduled mission. For this, they would be equipped with both the Starlight scope and a West German-made wiretap, both first for the Shining Brass program. Their target was the extreme western edge of the demilitarized zone just inside the Laos-Vietnam border. In keeping with plans, Colorado would not be the only team to be deployed in that vicinity. 7 kilometers south of the intended landing zone, a second SOG spy team, Arizona, was gearing up for a simultaneous infiltration. Richard Ray, who previously had accompanied Ohio on a single mission, was originally scheduled to accompany Arizona on this outing. Let's just say good luck he didn't for Richard Ray. 2 days earlier, however, he contracted malaria and was convalescing at the SEAL compound on the Sun Tre Peninsula. 5 Vietnamese members of the team also remained behind, giving Team Arizona a light complement of just 3 Americans and 4 indigenous commandos. Late on October 2nd, both spike teams headed for the forward SOG launch site at Quezon Son. The next morning, Colorado departed first aboard South Vietnamese piloted H-34 choppers. Already thick with tension, the team focused on Braden with all the added concern. He was carrying very little ammunition, records Sadek, and we feared he had no intention of coming back. And Braden was already going a little cuckoo from all the combat. I mean, he had been in heavy combat since 16 years old. According to the original plan, they were supposed to install the wiretap then pull back 3 kilometers and wait for B-52 bomber strikes before recovering the tapes. After further consideration, however, the planners felt it was not worth the risk of detection to have the team move 3 kilometers. Reversing their plan, then the B-52 strike went in first, immediately followed by the team's insertion. I think the B-52s hit a water buffalo. That's a little added deal that's not in here that Jim Hetrick told me. Not pretty. Once they landed, the situation intensified. In short order, Colorado located a suitable telephone cable running along the slope overlooking the Huey-Nam Say River from the north. The entire valley they found was crawling with North Vietnamese troops who had carved steps into both slopes and even had a simple ferry shuttling supplies across the river. The heavy NVA presence extended all the way to Arizona's area of operations. This entire pocket of Laos, essentially having been annexed and treated as territorial North Vietnam since December 1958. Almost as soon as the second team landed to the south, it was in deep trouble. We made contact with the NVA next to the landing zone, said ethnic Chinese team member Tran Hong Quang. Pleas from the U.S. radio man came over the airwaves, followed by an eerie silence. One member managed to escape and return to friendly lines. Tran and one other ethnic Chinese were captured the following morning. The remainder of the team, including the 3 Green Berets, were listed as missing and presumed dead. Colorado was more fortunate, remaining sheltered in a bomb crater near the summit of the slope. The team waited patiently until sundown. Intending to use their starlight scope, they unpacked the device and aimed it along the river. To their disappointment, however, the scope refused to work. That's when Braden famously smashed it on an open NVA trail, where Judd Hetrick said it met its doom. That's that point. Not wanting to be burdened with broken gear, Braden buried the night vision device on the spot. Buried? No, he didn't. He smashed it, literally. I know that because Jim was standing next to him when he did it. They're being very kind here to say buried. He didn't bury it. He smashed it to bits. We later caught hell for not bringing it home, said Bath. The team had better luck with the wiretap, which it managed to install without complications. Waiting nearby for the tapes to record several hours of telephone traffic, Colorado then recovered the device and was successfully exfiltrated by chopper. Filthy after their outing, Shattuck headed straight for the SEAL compound on the Sun Tran Peninsula. His Colorado teammate J.D. Bath joined him for what both hope was a peaceful night in the air-conditioned SEAL quarters. It was not to be. Shortly before midnight, a massive blast rocked the corner of the camp, knocking off part of the roof of the sleeping quarters. Richard Ray, who was resting from his bout with malaria, assumed it was a mortar round accidentally cooking off. There had been a misfire during weapons training that day, he recalled, and that round had been stored with the others. A quick investigation, however, showed that the blast was a result of a communist demolition charge, apparently sent as a message from the Viet Cong that the peninsula was not immune from attack. Trying to catch a few more hours sleep, Shattuck and Bath both were roused the next morning and told to report to Saigon. Thereafter, after rendezvousing with Braden, they were given a brief summary about the results of their wiretap. SOG's first. It contained word that a high-power group was coming to give the South a pep talk, remembered Shattuck. So important was the news that a copy was immediately forwarded to Washington. While Braden should have been proud of Colorado's achievements, he was uncharacteristically sullen during the debrief. Big insight into his mind. Still concerned about fallout from the dead South Vietnamese militiaman, he took Shattuck aside and confided he was going to flee, which he obviously, as we know, did in December of 1966. He mentioned that he might be going to South America, said Shattuck. True to his word, Braden did disappear, but rather than heading for the Western Hemisphere, he went for the heart of Africa to join the mercenary outfit fighting in the former Belgian Congo, as we know now, 5 Commando. Commanded earlier by Major Mike Hoare. He later is commanded by Colonel Ralph Peters, comes after Mike Hoare. He was later detained and extradited to the United States and reportedly served jail time for desertion. So we know where the story picks up there. It picks up at Fort Dix with Hank Birch and all the weird things that happened in Braden there. But it's just good to read an earlier account that happened that he was able to get early on of what happened over there in Vietnam and the killing of that South Vietnamese guy who was murdered, and what happened to Braden, of course, with that murder. They just brushed it under the rug, like we were talking about with the guys earlier. Everything he ever did, they just brushed it under the rug. He literally murdered this gentleman who was an officer in the adjoining army fighting on our side. He executed him in the back of the head twice, and they just brushed it under the rug like it never happened. I mean, the guy had a get out of jail free card for everything he did. That's just the way it worked. He knew a lot, and he had a lot of protection. And I'm beginning to believe now it was more than just Singlob. I think he knew other people in addition to Singlob, because I think Singlob helped. Of course, he was friends with Singlob. We only know that because of Altair, when they were friends at the Parachute Club at the 8th Division in Germany, where he was a member of the Golden Arrows, of course, with Altair and others. And they'd fly to the various skydiving competitions, which Ted would win the majority of. Al famously won the Scottish Championships and slightly beat out his best friend, Ted Braden. And he was very happy. And they actually wrote that wrong in the magazine. And Al was like, no, I won that day. That's why I'm holding the trophy. I won, you know. It was very funny. I wish Al was still with us because he had so much great insight into Braden. I wish I would have recorded him. It was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I talked to him on the phone for 2 hours, and we mailed things back and forth, and we emailed a lot. And I have all his emails, thank God. But I wish I had him recorded because he was such a big believer in Ted. But going back to all things CIA, someone sent this, and this was on my YouTube channel. I'm trying to remember if this is the one. Okay, that was another one I was going to read. I might read that one second. This one's actually a little bit better because this is where I'm heading with this whole thing. This is the juxta the story. And this gentleman did not leave his real name, so I won't even mention his name, but it won't matter. He didn't give me his real name anyway, so I think it's free enough to do this. But this is from 3 days ago. I shared it with a few friends. It said, Drew, I really do enjoy your channel and your research on the DB Cooper story. I think you're spot on about a lot of this stuff. To me, Braden fits a picture better than 99% of other possible suspects that have been looked at over the years. So many of the other guys just don't fit at all, and the people promoting them as the dude are really reaching. My dad worked in aerospace in the late 60s through the late 80s in Southern California, and he was accustomed to being in meetings with a laundry list of alphabet soup, acronym, government agencies, military brass, Pentagon suits, big-name aerospace corporation board members and owners, and a lot of mysterious characters who were never introduced or explained to him or his superiors. On the Monday following the 1971 Thanksgiving long weekend after the Cooper hijacking, my family returned from visiting relatives in Bakersfield. That's weird, Bakersfield connection. I did ask him about that, like how far his family went back in Bakersfield. Haven't heard back. My dad arrived at work to find the plant swarming with a myriad of those people crawling all over the place. Dad had gotten to know some of them over the years. During a lull in business discussions, one of them asked him, "Hey, Mac, what do you make of this Cooper hijacking?" ? My dad told them he had no clue, as he had learned to keep his opinions and thoughts to himself, even as a foreman in his own department. With his former military background as a radio operator in Patton's Third in Europe during World War II, he understood proper protocol and kept mum. The guy talking to him was one of the government alphabet guys. He responded by taking my dad aside and saying this, direct quote, "I'll let you in on a secret. The guy who did this is one of ours, C.I.A. He didn't act on his own, and he did. Remember, that's first I've seen this. He didn't act on his own. I mean, this is just a message from a guy I don't even know, but it's interesting. I love stuff like this. He didn't act on his own, and it has nothing to do with the ransom money. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That means he's pointing to the fact that the CIA maybe picked somebody to do the hijacking, and that would explain why Cooper only asked for $200,000 when a lot of the copycats, including Richard Floyd McCoy, asked for $500,000. Why did Cooper only ask for 200? Because he knew there was 250 stored at the Seattle bank, or, there's a million reasons, but it's one reason a lot of people that like that theory of the CIA setting this up for whatever reason, whatever. But that would explain why he's going for 200, not 500. He will never be identified. There will never be an arrest, much less a prosecution. This will remain on the books as an unsolved case that will be saturated with false leads, red herrings, false evidence, lost evidence, numerous suspects that resemble the guy, any of whom could look exactly like him and none of which actually do. This is his words, not mine. I didn't write this. Anybody knows my writing style. I can't write that well. This has everything to do with making a statement. It also has everything to do with changing outdated laws pertaining to air travel, which has become more dangerous with each passing year, and some government agencies are dragging their heels who do not want these things to go into effect. The U.S. is behind the curve in these matters, and there must be changes made for the sake of the security of our country. My dad always wondered why the agent told him that, but he had plenty of experience in the Army as a radio operator on the front lines of World War II, where he often had to deal with high-ranking brass officers who were in the I Corps. He was a trusted employee who had the keys to almost everything in the plant he worked in. He was a quiet man who worked hard, did his job, and came home where he was a homebody family man who didn't sit on bar stools and Monday morning quarterback battles and wars, won or lost or blow his own horn about his service. It always amazed me the people whom he knew and associations with which he had seldom talked about. I was surprised when he came home from work that day and revealed any of what he was told in confidence about the Cooper affair, some of which he held back for years, and sometime went on, he would leak a little more of it to me, which I didn't talk about for fear of anyone hearing it would think I was crazy. Before he passed in 1998, he told me one day, "I haven't told you many things over the years. Don't go digging where you shouldn't." And that's how he ended it. I absolutely love emails like that. All right, it's not an email, it's a post. I don't know who did it. It wasn't me. It's not even by his real name, so don't take it to the bank. Don't cash the check. It's just fun reading that, somebody heard a story from 70. Of course, I'm a Roswell guy too, so I like stories like that. I don't see conspiracy in everything, but I do see it in this case. I never saw conspiracy in Zodiac. I know some people do, like MK Ultra and stuff, which I fully believe MK Ultra is real. There's no doubt. But I never really saw it directly in Zodiac. I think Ross kind of likes a Church of Satan background there. And I know Plate C, you're a big MK Ultra guy, even in Zodiac. And I totally respect that because I see MK Ultra in things like the Vegas shooting, but I've never really seen anything specific Zodiac conspiracy wise. But Cooper all day long. Why is there redactions in a case where nobody died? Why are the redactions so heavy? Why is it the only unsolved American skyjacking? Why is it the only one? The CIA knew everything in the 70s. Are you kidding me? They fought both sides of every war everywhere. That's what Braden's talking about in Ramparts. He's talking about the Congo Wars. It didn't matter if it was Tushimbe or Martubu who won. It didn't matter. The CIA was going to come in and claim the winning side and run the country. That's what they did. They'd come in and fund both sides. Hey, if you win, we helped you. If you win, we helped you. That's the whole CIA mantra throughout their existence, and especially the early 70s. And from people that told me, like Jim Hetrick, I'll throw his name out there, told me, he said, Ted knew more of what was just going on in Southeast Asia. He knew what was going on globally with the CIA. So dead man switch or whatever, they didn't kill him, but he knew everything. He knew what they were doing everywhere, not just Southeast Asia. Obviously, they were running heroin through Laos for the warlords to get better access to the grounds and not deal with them. They said, hey, if all we got to do is help you gain heroin and you give us a tactical advantage, we will do it. CIA works both ways. Yes, Patty. CIA is a two-way street. This is a CIA deal all day long. Why would the CIA care that much about locking down the airlines? Who knows? They did a lot of dumber stuff. I'm not saying I'm a big believer in that. That's obviously what this gentleman's saying. That's another reason, it wasn't me. He's kind of leading you to that. He's not saying who it is. All he's saying is he was told it was a CIA plan the whole time. That's what he's saying. He's not mentioning any suspect name. He doesn't, he says Braden fits it, but he's not saying for sure or anything. He's just saying this is a CIA deal. That's the hill I'll die on. This is CIA. I'll die on that hill all day long, even if it isn't Braden. It's CIA. It's another CIA guy. Maybe he knew him. I went on the plane, but this is CIA. CIA all the way. There's a reason it's the only one that's unsolved, because they won't tell you who it is. Certain people were in the know. Certain people were told, certain people weren't. CIA doesn't tell the FBI everything. That's absolute nonsense. The CIA will keep their own secrets to their own deathbed, and they can keep a secret. The top level guys don't talk. They're not going to talk to their FBI buddy. Hey, here's what I heard. But certain people like Singlov, actually, since he co-founded the CIA, he would have been one at the top of the echelon. And we know he was friends with Braden. There's no doubt about it. They would sit there for hours in the club talking about World War II stories for hours and hours. It was a total fluke. I even know that because of Altair, who sat there with them and just as in awe of all these stories from World War II, because they both had participated in World War II, both Singlov and Braden. I asked Jim Hetrick, I said, you know, because for a time, Singlov was Chief SOG in Vietnam. I don't know what exact time he was there. There's different Chief SOGs during the tenure of MACVSOG in Vietnam. And I said, Jim, do you know if Braden knew Jack Singlov? Did that ever come up? And he said, I don't know. Ask General Singlov. So he's basically punting the question. That's what those guys did. He's like, I'm not touching this, Drew. Ask Singlov. And Singlov was still alive at the time. He's probably 95 when I asked him the question. Of course, Singlov lives to be 100. He passes away 3 years ago. Lived a long life, lived over 100, a little bit over 100 years, and then he passes away. Singlov was on a long time. Al Keller was really good friends with Singlov in the post Vietnam years. He never told me that Singlov ever brought up Braden, but famously, Al Keller has a discussion with the godfather of Special Forces, Mr. Billy Waugh, one of my favorites, and I thank God for Bruce Smith. Speaking of Bruce, and thanks for this, Ryan. I know you're watching. There's a picture of me of Bruce from last year's CooperCon. Thanks to Brian for the invite, and John and Chris. And there's Bruce's book, D.B. Cooper and the FBI. I recommend, if you're new to the case, even I think that's one thing we'll all agree on. That's a book you should buy first. I think all guys would agree on that. Buy that before anybody else's. We would say that number one. That's something we all agree on in Cooper World. Buy that book first. That you will have no arguments there. We'll all start with that agreement. Here is a picture of Billy Waugh on the left with none other than J.D. Bath. Ted Braden's number 3. Of course, number 2 was Jim Hetrick. J.D. Bath was assistant. He was the radio man for a while, and he had to go back home to the States for a while for R&R, and that's when Al Keller comes in. My good friend Al Keller was filling in for J.D. Bath at that time. But here's a picture of Bath, obviously, with Billy Waugh, who is a big believer. You know, Bruce's book is great. It's just so well written. I mean, driving in a truck in Seattle with Bruce Smith telling you a fresh story you've never heard is a bucket list. It was the funniest thing, probably the hardest, could have been the hardest I laughed in my life. I had tears coming out, just tears flowing out of my eyes. I can't, one day I'll tell the story, but it was in that New York accent, and it was just out of nowhere. You know, he mastered the art of storytelling, and it was somewhat Cooper related, but not fully. But it was just so funny the way he hit the punchline of it. It had tears flowing out of my eyes. I was on another planet. I mean, that's worth more to me than, you know, anything. Riding a truck, it was surreal. Riding in a truck in Seattle with Bruce Smith being told a new story by the master storyteller. He's that so good. Yes, it's much cogitation. C.I.A. had a lot of fingers. Yes, Mary, you're very smart. You're one of the best researchers out there, by the way. C.I.A. had a lot of fingers and a lot of pies Thanksgiving week. It's just the C.I.A. ain't going to miss this, man. They're just not. They're just that good. They're just that good. They know everything. I'm not going to say they're the Mossad, but they're good. They in the early 70s, they were the best we had of like a Mossad. They were that good. They had people on the ground, people laundering money, people. And later we find out that Mr. Braden gets into what? Counterfeiting, and the Secret Service is involved. That's interesting, isn't it? We can prove it. Don't want to spoil anything. Those are good things to come. He gets into counterfeiting money, and the Secret Service is involved. And guess what? Slap on the wrist, Ted. See you later. You'll get a couple days in jail and we'll get you out in no time, buddy. We don't want you there too long. Even counterfeiting money, we're going to let you out. You get caught counterfeiting money in these days, you're going to get some serious jail time. I mean, robbing banks in three-piece suits and cowboy boots and counterfeiting money. That is a big, big federal crime that even the Secret Service gets involved in. Why would CIA for sure, but why the Secret Service? Secret Service is getting involved now? Yeah. Cooper took a dummy shoot. Sounds like a paratrooper. Absolutely. You know, back in the day, that's a good job by Ryan and everybody to dispel that rumor of, oh, he was a total novice because he grabbed the dummy chute. You know, he didn't know it was a dummy. Well, if you're a master rigger, you know it's a dummy. If you're a master parachute rigger, you know it is. You know the ones they gave you if they're good or not because you examine them. That's true. I like you, Rodeo Rebel. I like that. I like your moniker. Rodeo Rebel. Can't beat that. Yeah, the truck driver is just a good. It's a good disguise for anybody, even if you were an actual truck driver. CIA is an octopus, tentacles everywhere. Yeah, man, this is a CIA deal. Sorry, I'll die on that hill. Let me die on that hill. Peacefully die on the hill. Yeah, CIA protocols, outcoming at a CIA passport. We know. Cover stories, methodologies. Let's say this one, but somebody told me once off record he didn't come to lose, which is kind of inferring what the guy wrote about. But I was never a big believer in this government thing. Anytime, man. Appreciate all your help. I'm glad to have you as a guy on the ground, and I'm sure I'll speak for Tony is right. Tony is right. You know, Tony Wright might have some questions for you, and I can get you two guys in touch if you would like. No problem. Tony might have some specific questions for you since you were there local. He has a lot of leads that I don't even know about. Tony has he knows names and places that I'll never know. I'm so glad that Tony is running with the mantle, and whatever I can do to back Tony up, I'm there for him. Yes, in the shadow of Mount Diablo in Stockton. Yeah, I got a friend up in Reading, which is a little further north, but Mount Diablo is also close to what neighborhood am I thinking of? Concord, or is it Concord? Is it Concord or Concord up there? I know everybody has their own local dialects, but is it Concord or Concord? Like it almost sounds like Concord, like the land was conquered. I know everybody has their own local pronunciations. Yeah, for sure. I'll Tony was on earlier. I know it's a little later where he is in Michigan. Just seeing if I missed anything. Yeah, Darnell asked about some Zodiac stuff earlier. Still working on it. Working on a couple of Zodiac projects. One of them's going to be kind of chunky, but good, and led by somebody other than me. So it's not going to be a failure. It's going to be good because this guy is one smart dude. I'm not going to give out his name, but some people probably know who he is. He's an extremely intelligent guy. Ruling myself out already. Hey, Mike. It's a brilliant idea. It's his. And I'm honored that he would even consider me to be a part of this endeavor coming from a guy like this. So he knows I really appreciate it and need to get going on this project. Yeah, what happened to your cogitating, Jen? I think you got hacked. I think you got hacked by the CIA, Jen. You got hacked. There's no doubt about it. You got hacked. I told this story about me being at Walmart by that car that had the guy with the comms in his ear with the black wire all wrapped around. No, it wasn't a hearing aid. This dude was in his mid-30s. I don't think he was using a hearing aid. Of course, I need him. But he had a comms device with his window down. And then he leans his seat all the way back and starts following my truck. I'm like, what does he want? Maybe he wanted my watch. I don't know what he wanted, but he sure did pull that seat up quick. That's all I know. And I saw the comms device clear as day because he's a white dude and had a black wire coming out of his left ear, and his haircut was as short as mine. Yeah, money didn't turn up. That's a whole nother mystery wrapped in a riddle. Yes. Oh, absolutely. The Oroville Dam. Oroville Dam, and oh gosh, Tony, what was the other location over there? Yeah, go back to that Special Forces of jumpers that most never knew about. It's MACVSOG. That's the Black Ops of U.S. Special Forces Army. There was about 13 to 1,400 of them through the whole term of the Vietnam War. Yes, definitely check out Darnell's channel. That turned out really good. I mean, even the audio came out great. So hopefully you didn't have to do too much editing on that, Darnell. But definitely check out Darnell's 2 channels, either one. Myers Fan is good. Of course, that's Michael Myers from the Halloween film series. Darnell, I never told you. I never met Jamie Lee Curtis, but I did talk to her dad on the telephone once, if that counts. Because my cousin was working at Jerry's Famous Deli in Century City, Hollywood area. They had like 4 locations, big New York style deli, but a lot of celebrities would hang out at the one. And I guess it was Studio City, if I'm getting that right. Not. It was actually closer to Beverly Hills, not in Beverly Hills, but not far from. It's been a while since I've been to Los Angeles, but it was close to it. And it was before Tony died, years and years and years and years and years ago. But they had this, phone at the bar, kind of old school. And he called me up and said, "Hey, I got somebody I want to talk to you." Of course, he was just being funny. He wouldn't tell me his name. Hands the phone to Tony Curtis, and he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "Pretty good. Who's this?" He goes, "This is Tony. Tony, nice to meet you, Tony." He goes, I said, "What's your full name?" He goes, "Tony Curtis." And I knew for a fact it was the real Tony Curtis. And I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Curtis." And it was him. So as the story goes, but I won't go into my Chris Farley story because it's heartbreaking. Missing Chris Farley, who I was in the building with at the same time, but didn't get to see him because we got in a little trouble and had to be put in our own private room to drink by ourselves. And Chris Farley came into the main room and lit up the whole restaurant. And we get to find out about it later. Missed. And I was a big Chris Farley fan. I mean, I literally wanted to cry. I was like, "No, I miss Chris Farley. I'll never see him again." And obviously I didn't. That was terrible. He had a very distinctive voice. It's like I knew it was somebody important. I knew it was somebody. I knew it was a celebrity just because of where he was. But Tony Curtis. I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." I mean, I didn't say, "Yo, you're joking me." I knew he was real. Ted and Charlie. Yes, it's weird to go used by the name Charlie later in life. Thank you. So that's it for tonight. I'm already running an hour early. I was trying to keep it down to an hour. I know people got things to do, but everybody have a great week. And I don't know. I'm going to do an NDE show pretty soon, and definitely more Zodiac, Darnell, and everybody else. I'm just trying to collect some more data. I hate running over the same ground over and over. That's why I love emails or screeds like that guy wrote me. You can't take it to the bank. I don't take any of that stuff to the bank. It's but it's interesting to put it at least, and it's pretty well written. And it's a story, and they're always stories unless you have documents to go with it. But I love stuff like that. I'm please send me stuff like that. I'll vet through it myself. And let the viewer decide. That's what I'm about. Let the viewer decide what they want to believe. But thank you to the gentleman that wrote that, by the way. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week. Thanks again, Patty, for all the great work.